So at the tail end of yesterday's panel, just as we were getting started on this concept of publications and how to fix it, we terminated abruptly. It turns out there was a panel at SAMOS last year that treated the same subject. Onur was on that panel, and he has a few introductory slides to the topic. A number of people came up to me afterwards and said, it's a shame that we had to kill it when we killed the panel because we're just getting started with something interesting. So Onur is going to introduce it with a few slides from the SAMOS panel that he was on. And he's going to take a maximum of 3 minutes. And then we'll throw it open to everybody. Go ahead, fire away.
So Yale introduced it. This was what I presented as SAMOS. But the debate statement was this. Basically it says it's time system venues should require authors to make their code and data publicly available. Those that do not will be held to a higher standard. And there was a clarification over here. Basically it says in PLDI, for example, papers by PC members are held to a higher standard. The term doesn't have a strict definition. That's my favorite part of it. I'm told, however, that it means that no weak rejects are allowed for these papers. In the discussion, the PC notes that the paper being discussed is written by a member, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a process like this. And this was kind of the abstract. Most scientific disciplines take reproducibility of experimental results much more seriously than computer science. In this panel, two teams of highly opinionated experts, so that's a different setup, will debate whether it's time to adopt a similar policy in top-tier systems conference and journals. The idea is to change the review process such that papers that do not make their code and data available will be held to a higher standard when making the accept-reject decision, thereby incentivizing authors to share. Okay. Do I want to put my statement? Or do you want to
1.5 minutes left.
1.5 minutes left, okay. So my bottom line, I'll put my position and then hopefully this will be a catalyst for discussion. I like the spirit of sharing source and data with publications. I think everyone should want to do it. By the way, I was on the opposing side for this particular statement. Everyone should be educated to do it, in my opinion, perhaps over time and with other incentives. But I disagree with that debate statement that I just showed you. Having to share source code and data should not be a requirement for publication. Authors should not be forced to do it in our field, and there are many reasons for it. I think the first and most important reason is the main reason for publication is to contribute insight quickly. It's not really, in our field, I don't view our field as a science, frankly. It's more of engineering. And our goal is to really develop the future. And if you don't contribute that insight, if we're really crazed by this evaluation, I don't think we're going to get to that future quickly. The second is, this is a very strict rule. I think strict rules have unintended consequences. If you adopt a rule that is against any kind of fairness, I think the ultimate goal should be whether the paper has merits to be accepted. If you adopt a rule other than merits, then you have a problem. And I think this actually introduces some double standards, because how do you define, how do you actually decide what is acceptable and what is not acceptable? So if you look over here, the term doesn't have a strict definition. What is that higher standard, right? So it's not clear. And we want industry to publish papers. I think, how do you actually get source code from industry? Good luck. And I think there's the final thing that I will say, and Yale mentioned that, there's great value to developing one's own infrastructure. If you give it up, somebody else may take it and do the wrong thing with it. And you've invested a lot of effort, so why do you have to make it available to everyone in the world so that they may do the wrong thing with it? So I think there are other alternatives to achieving what we're trying to achieve: encouragement, education, and reward for publishing source code and data. Positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement, basically, without tying paper publication to source code publication. Okay, I'll stop here.
Good.
Keep the debate statement up.
Very good. Huh? No, we didn't go within 3 minutes, but he was close enough.
All right.
Okay. So you want to add anything?
No, actually, I agree with most of the things you said. Particularly the double standard. I think that's really a bad idea because it is well defined.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be on that panel, but didn't feel I had the time to go to Istanbul for a panel. So I didn't. But I didn't remember that as being even part of it, this double standard thing. I mean, I don't like that at all.
The main thing was, should you
The main
come up
thing
with
is
yourself
computer architecture is science. And if it's a science, then reproducibility is important. And how do you know that, you can trust the numbers? So rather than have us, so did you want to add anything before we throw it over?
It's a complex problem, I think. But one of the things I think, if people are, for instance, working on a Linux kernel, and you can improve it and you publish your code, it gets adopted immediately. And if that's your goal in life, that your work gets adopted, by the global community, it certainly makes that part a lot easier. But otherwise, there's very well thought out statements. Yes.
But that's an encouragement in a sense, right? It's not forcing people to do it. So I agree.
Yeah.
From a practical point of view, it's impossible to have these standards because even in a university, I'm a university guy, we are industry driven. Computer engineering is industry driven. So my project partners will allow that I publish a paper providing the ideas and the numbers, but they will not allow that I provide the detailed VHDL code or whatever, because then the work that I did for them is lost. So it's not possible. The other alternative is that we will not publish these things, or we will not have those projects. That's the dilemma.
So the root of that dilemma is the stupidity of the European Union.
Why the European Union?
Why?
But how did you get there? Yeah.
But we spent 8 billions.
So some of you people were in the audience when I first stated it to the project officer of High Peak, who insisted that what universities ought to be doing in research is helping companies solve the near-term problems. And so I pointed out, that he had his head up his ass because that's not research. What universities ought to be doing is extending knowledge, extending the horizon, and solving a company's problem of getting their product out today. We refer to as product development, not research. And that if the European Union wants to advance the state of the art, then they should be funding research, which is not product development. And having the companies drive what you're working on, I think, is counter to what the university ought to be all about, which is extending and imparting knowledge.
I think that both is important. You are absolutely right that the task of university is to do research for the next 10, 20 years, yeah? Long-term things. But I think it's healthy for an institute, for a university to do also things which are of practical use in the short term, because it helps to learn about accurate, actual problems, and this inspires to do things which are good for the next 20 years. That's my position.
So I agree with everything that you just said, except the word university associated with what you just said. So for example, do you teach during the summer?
Mm-hmm.
You teach during the summer?
Yeah. I have to provide a lecture on Friday, so that's summer.
So maybe I'm just naive with respect to European universities. In American universities, typically the summers are spent doing research, consulting with companies. What I do with my PhD students is send them to companies for the summer, every summer, until they're ready to write up their dissertation. And they get the benefit of all that interaction with industry. They help industry. They sign away the intellectual property of what they do in the summer, but they get exposed to what those problems are, and then they come back to the university and do the 10 or 20 years out. Industry's job is quite simple, to make money. The university's job is to extend the horizons, and I prefer not to confuse those two.
So,
but I'm getting a, no, go ahead.
now, so what did this person that you told to put their head up their arse, or whatever it was, what did they say? What was their answer to your thing, and this is really stupid?
I'm in charge of giving out money. And then 3 professors in the room got up and said, oh no, he's absolutely right. He being the guy giving out the money. That's right, yeah. And in fact, some of the people in the audience here were in the audience when I did that. But that may be far afield from what we're doing here, so I don't know that we want to get down that digression or whether we want to get back here. There was some hands up. I'd rather not be doing so much talking, so go ahead.
I agree. I think the positive incentive versus negative incentive to the debate question is a good idea. And I'm doing research in the programming languages and formal methods communities also, and there also they have introduced this positive incentive kind of mechanism. And if I may show how it looks like, maybe I can plug it for a second. It's called the Artifact Evaluated Seal. So if your paper, let's say, presents a tool that you have developed or something like that, you are welcome to submit it to this artifact evaluation process after it gets accepted, right? So your paper got accepted, that's fine. But after it gets accepted, you may want to submit your code and your tool and whatever it is, this artifact, to a committee that does a second review for the tool. And it reviews it according to this criteria that you see here: consistent, complete, well documented, easy to reuse. Right? And when you get the seal, then you get the badge in your paper. Oops. And it looks like that, right? So now your paper has this stamp on it, right? And you ISO. Yeah, it says artifact evaluated.
Just to add to that, we're thinking about doing the same thing at ES Week next year.
Right. So
What was your comment?
We're thinking about doing the same thing at Embedded System Week next year, right? Have this artifact.
So conferences like POPL, Principles of Programming Languages, are doing this, and this is CAP, Computer Aided Verification.
So CGO doing this again for the second year this year.
This is after the paper's accepted.
Yeah, and this is a kind of separate thing. So in your paper you write, we have developed this tool, and here's the results, and blah blah blah, and it gets accepted. And then they say, well, would you like also to submit your tool now? So you will give them the code, you will give them the benchmarks, and they will sit down and run your tool, and they, if it's easy to run, if it's well documented, if they have to spend, half a day or one day, I don't know how much time they spend, but then they give you low grades, and you may not get this seal on your paper in the end.
I like this idea, but it may not be well applied when we are doing some co-design between software and hardware, and related to some confidential material.
Sure. I'm not saying this is the solution to everything, but it's more of a positive incentive.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. It doesn't apply to everything. That's true.
Is it just the seal, or is there also like kind of evaluation where I can look up some of the criteria somehow rated?
This is not made public, so it's a special committee. Your code is not made public, so you send it to a special committee, and it's only the committee that does that job, and then they give you the seal.
But still, is it a more fine-grained evaluation or just a stamp? I see a paper with the stamp.
That's what you get. In the end, you get that on your paper. That's what you get in the end.
It's up to you to still release the code publicly if you want, but you don't have to.
You don't have it.
You can only say only in the committee.
Okay, so I just
And it's voluntary as well, so
Completely voluntary.
there's no cost.
The idea is obviously to have positive reinforcement, that papers with the stamps get higher citations, and there's peer pressure to do that.
So, excellent idea. I have very small remark. Since, you come from the formal verification.
You want to speak up, please?
Yes. A very small remark. It's an excellent idea if you can reconsider the label, because people familiar with the Gödel theorem have immediately a problem with your label. Any mathematical system cannot be completely consistent at the same time, right? So you have both words there. So you prove that that piece of code is incomplete and consistent. So you
Good point, good point.
You disprove your sorry.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, so getting these tools, once you've written your paper, you have everything in place. I spent a lot of time working on open source simulators, putting my software and stuff out there, but it takes a lot of time. How do you, as a, not being tenured yet, working on the tenure process, how do you get the tenure committee to recognize all the effort that you have to put in to actually get these things ready to release and go out to the public? I'm spending student effort and time on it rather than working on other research. How do you get them to recognize that?
No, so don't do it.
So actually, I don't care about this, what I like is the seal. I don't necessarily think the seal should be because of all these ingredients that he put forward. But the one ingredient that I do like that he put forward is that some committee has now looked at the bowels of what produced the numbers and legitimized those numbers. I like that idea because that gives a stamp that maybe we can trust this thing.
No.
And I guess I'll just leave it at that. So the idea would be that you wouldn't have that enormous investment of stuff to make it, ruggedized, if you would. But still, does that help? So the reproducibility, does that help?
Well,
It certainly takes a step toward somebody has looked at this and said, yeah, we can believe what he's saying.
my understanding is that you have to submit a virtual machine where you actually produce the results that are in the paper. You have a makefile of some sorts, right, that you run, and it runs and produces the results that are shown in the paper.
Yeah, well, ease of use is part of the criterion. So whether you want to submit a virtual machine or source code or whatever, I mean, but it has to be easy to use. Sure. If I have to spend a week trying to run your code, you will not get the ease of use.
In reality, these committees are postdocs or students, right? That will do these evaluations.
Well, in that particular case, they were not.
No?
Go ahead.
So, in theory, it's a great idea, right? No, I don't have any objection to the fact that it is great, and if it's possible. So, you run a conference, and now you have to add on top of the review process X amount of time to do that, which is well spent. My problem is the following. If I write a tool and I run it for a reasonable amount of time and I give it to somebody with the inputs, it runs on a plain environment, okay, they can reproduce it. I do, and I'm thinking of the students work more. I plugged in something in a chain of tools, each of it has a license. Some of the stupid tools require a particular version of the tool, an installation and I don't know what, and if you run it in a different platform, blah, 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 whatever. Practically, if he wants to make his work reproducible, that's what I just told him, he has to send a student over somewhere a week to set up the environment, assuming everything exists. Right? So, how practical is this? Making it open and say to the world, you can rerun it if you want and you get the same result. And even if I do, I rerun everything of his work and I get the same results. Are they correct?
I'm sorry?
Are they correct? I changed the simulator, I added something and the timing is such. If my change was stupid, then the timing is reproducible but incorrect. Right? Who will rethink my thinking of changing the simulator to verify that now the changed timing for my change is correct?
Or even correct in the first place. Yeah.
Maybe
Oh, you're suggesting that what you're reproducing is bullshit.
Correct.
Yes.
Ah. So I would argue that
it's reproducible, right? No problem.
Reproducible bullshit.
So the point is that you shine the light of day on this reproducible bullshit and then nobody cares. What I'm concerned about is that if it's not reproducible, then we can't even tell what's there. Is it good stuff or is it bullshit?
I don't disagree with that. It is a good idea. It's just, I don't know how much of value. Okay, let's say that all the work of this conference presented today is reproducible. So what did it add to our knowledge? If it's a good idea, I can try it myself and perhaps work on it, improve it, whatnot.
No, you can't. Take any paper, I challenge you and try to reproduce the results. There's not enough.
No, I take the idea and I try to redo it basically myself, not reproduce your result, let's say.
Well, but even then, not even getting close to the results, right? There's not enough information in the average paper.
No.
Maybe interesting analogy from industry. We don't publish any papers, but it's very similar. I go to a customer and I say, here's our product, and we charge money for it. So there's value in it. I mean, for you, the value is in the paper. For us, we charge money for it, and the customer says, prove it to us that it's real. Right? And we typically go through a cycle of 3 to 9 months to prove this. This is our sales cycle. They don't believe us like you buy a car. You know, you trust the brand, you buy the car. For us, we also go through a very in-depth evaluation cycle. We have to completely open up the kimono, and we cannot reproduce everything, but at some point they say, okay, we believe this is real, now we will put the money on the table.
Yeah, but you open it up, and you have to open it up. You do open it up. You probably get them under NDA so that they don't, broadcast it to the world.
Yeah.
And the thing works. We don't have that equivalent thing in our conferences.
But some things are theory, right? If we say if you drop the voltage, the power will go down by the square. People believe that immediately. We don't have to prove that. So some things I think are theory that you can grasp immediately. You don't have to publish any code for that or show it.
So I think there's a whole lot more going on in what's claimed in a paper than if you drop the voltage. Half the voltage means, 1/4 the energy. Sure, that's theory, but papers do a lot more claim than, basic
But
physics.
isn't it an option to only give your code, or, if you've created the whole infrastructure that you do not want to publish because you want to publish more afterwards, only give it to the reviewers so they can verify your numbers?
So that's what I like about his committees, they're giving it that stamp.
So if I adopt this policy, let's say, we should increase the number of members of program committee. Okay.
So
We
you
also will have to have a new chair. I mean, chair. It's reproducible results, something like that. I don't know if it's correct, but
it's very difficult.
Okay, maybe for
Does it bother you that it doesn't exist? Does it bother you that it doesn't exist? Am I the only one that's bothered by the fact that this reproducibility doesn't exist?
No, but I don't, in many cases, I don't see a practical way around it. Yeah. If you've got a very complicated piece of software that actually may use open source stuff or proprietary stuff in this chain, and it's really difficult to use, how the hell is some guy going to do it in a couple of weeks? It may take him 3 months.
Well, maybe his committee, so the time from acceptance until the conference is not a couple of weeks. I assume that's what they do, they use that long period of time to put the seal on it.
The point is, as you were saying, there may be some domains where it makes sense, but in a lot of system modeling or development, the whole thing is pretty big, right? Even building a chip, we build a lot of prototype chips. It takes about 3 or 4 weeks to get the thing tested, to get the thing to work. First time you put the chip on a test, it doesn't do anything usually. Maybe it smokes a bit, but I mean, it takes a while to set up all the
if it provides a nice thing that you can hang on your wall with nicely framed. So it does do something.
Just my experience, my recent experience, not from conference, but from journals, from IT transaction in video technology, which is in this transaction, we submit let's say, the paper. In the letter to first editor, I mean, okay, inform him that have I mean, in YouTube a demo of the work, a demo, not just a demo, 5 minutes. And the editor accepted, editor advised us to put, let's say, in the actual text, actual manuscript, okay, for the readers, and this demo for me can improve the readability of the paper, because can show the story of the paper, let's say in 3 minutes, and someone this could be useful for some conference paper.
The demo can be contrived.
Yes.
So when I was in the Army, when we were being funded, when I was in the Army, and the general came in to see what we'd done, this is a long time ago.
There's no Army anymore.
So with the computer, what we would do would be to read in the input deck, unbeknownst to the general, would also be the output deck, so that it would then display exactly what he was looking for to display, even though it did nothing, right? I guess I'm against quackery, and you know, maybe I'm too paranoid, I don't know. Yeah. Questions, comments? Go ahead.
So, I think if we look at other domains of research and science, then, for example, in the medical field, they have some quality standards for publications that you have to document, for example, the results of some studies with a lot of persons who were involved, so that you have to have a documentation. It's not required that you put all these hypes of paper to the review committee, because it's even impossible there to check all the material. But you have to have it, and from time to time, single papers are selected and they have to prove. And that's an approach which seems to me more practical. I even cannot imagine that if we publish a new architecture and say, okay, we have the following synthesis results, that anybody in the review committee will start long synthesis runs. It's impossible, it takes too much time. But if you are forced to have a more detailed documentation available, and randomly the one or the other paper is selected to prove that it's a good quality, and it's an absolute shame if you don't have it, then that would be an increase of the average quality.
So that would be requirement. So
yeah,
if I put forward a paper and I give you numbers, I have to also, when I used the term escrow yesterday, escrow all the documentation, the backup, and then randomly some papers would actually examine that, and if it turns out that you were bullshitting, then you become, it's pretty shameful.
But that's what you normally do, because if you produce some results, you have these results. I hope you have it, and then you can store it anywhere, that's no problem.
So what do you think? Does that make sense?
It's a great idea. No, so the question is the following. Why is this log there in the first place? So this is the same, you pay the overhead in advance to keep this. It's a very good idea, right? No
I think so.
But there's cost. So what's the benefit?
Yes.
Why did they come up with this in the first place? And I think it is because the benefit is that if you do make the new discovery, you might get a Nobel. How do you prove? You go back to the logs 10 years back that you were the first one, not the second, right? So there used to be an incentive to do this in the first place. So it's used a posteriori to check. It's not this.
So is the incentive here that if this is required, and then your number comes up, and you get checked, and it turns out that your stuff is all nonsense, then it's pretty shameful, you know?
Right, but I don't think this is why the whole process was set up.
Well, I don't care why it was set up. Is this something that makes sense? I'm sorry?
Why it was set up in the other field doesn't matter.
Well,
The question is, can we implement
because
it?
there's the carrot and the stick, right? We only have the stick, not the carrot.
So he's suggesting a stick and carrot.
No, only
for us.
Only the stick.
I don't see it.
I pay
You don't
the
see the
price,
carrot.
and
So
I
the
might
carrot,
avoid the
the
stake.
carrot is that you're a bad guy, that if it came out that this thing that you've been given all kinds of credit for was all nonsense, well, it'd be pretty embarrassing, you know?
So,
That's the carrot.
with the stake. No, that's not.
No,
I'm trying to avoid the stake, there's no carrot.
It's
I will never gain anything. If I'm perfect at what I'm doing, I will never gain anything. I put in the effort, I'm supposed to, right? I'm not doing my job better. I put the effort, but there's no reward.
Ah.
Well, there's no reward for the people that do the evaluation, right? That's a big problem, I think, that there's no, you don't get any recognition for, you could spend weeks getting this stuff working, so.
But we can have artifact awards, for example. You publish something that's important, that's useful for the community.
That's a carrot.
That's a positive reinforcement.
Yes, correct.
That's certainly a carrot.
But one more line, I will see this.
Huh?
I mean, this is, so, okay, if about the evaluation for the reviewers, if the card would be that the community, worldwide, I mean, will, let's say, accept that this, let's say, okay, this is very good for your promotion of your career, or let's say, should something, should kind of benefit people. Now, by reading papers have some benefits. If it is good paper, you can gain some, can learn some very new ideas. But spending weeks for testing chips, who will pay? Students.
Good.
What, me or?
Okay, me? Okay, here is an approximated rough idea of how to do these checks. Instead of sending the code, perhaps it's a way that the committee will send an input, a new input. So you are obliged to give your input from us, and the committee will end your code. The committee just sign the code somehow, and you will reproduce a new result for the input that they sent you. And this is how you prove that your results are valid.
You didn't just make up the response.
What?
They've got to, that doesn't remove having to validate the software.
It's a validation of one result. So if you are claiming for speed up or
yeah, but you could fake the result. You just send them back and say it does this. How do they know?
The code is somehow they add something to your code which signs the output, which proves that you got it. I don't know exactly how it could be done, but I guess it can be done. That is more of a practical thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it appears like a quality assurance thing, right? And at least in my view, the community already has a quality assurance mechanism, which is peer reviews as we know them. Even though it sounds interesting, I would go towards improving the current quality assurance framework, which is perhaps more for reviews. Both ways, I mean, both from the guy who is receiving them and the guy who's providing them, rather than adding a new one. Because I see some overhead in this. You have to recruit guys to perhaps run the code, or maybe a guy who is specialist in the field, so that you can reduce consistency of results and reproducibility.
But what does he get? Did he get paid more money, or what is the benefit to that? But hands up, people who want to run somebody else's experiment.
No, but
okay, calm down, guy. I got a ton of experiments for you to run.
Why is that different from being a reviewer?
Hands up who loves reviewing paper.
It's a matter of degree.
Still do it.
A reviewer, you can read the paper in an afternoon. running somebody's code may take you 3 months to get it set up.
Well, that's the thing about well documented and so on, right? If it takes 3 months, it fails, right?
Yeah, yeah. If it takes 3
I mean, I
months,
agree in certain fields
how
it may
many
not work.
people, because it's also a question of critical mass, right?
Look,
So
there's
if there's only 3 people in the world who are interested in this type of research, then maybe it's not so interesting research after all, right? But if it's, I mean, coming back to your earlier point, in other fields there are competitions. If it's an important enough problem, let's say SAT solving, right? SAT solving is an important enough problem that there are thousands of researchers working worldwide on this problem, and there are hundreds of them who are really building tools and are trying to compete with one another. So,
Yes.
but if I'm solving a problem where only me and Dimitris are solving, then maybe we are not strong enough. Maybe this is not a very
Well,
interesting
you're
problem,
saying
and none of this applies
the future
because
science is
who cares?
based on who's doing it. Most people are doing it, which is completely wrong.
No, I'm not saying this should be the case always, right?
But your SAT, so, I mean, they have competitions like that in computer architecture.
That's right.
For very, things that are very well defined, like
That's right.
predictors and drive predictors, things like that. But suppose you wanted to set up a CAD system to prototype chips. So you buy this stuff. It will take you a long time. This is stuff that's bulletproof that you buy. And you can't just put it on a computer and hit go. And this is stuff that's actually designed to be used, unlike stuff we produce, right? So you can't do it in an afternoon.
For these type of things, the reproducibility maybe is not sort of.
So I agree with you that the stuff that we do is not designed to be used. Does that mean that it can't be examined to see whether it's
No,
bullshit
it
or
doesn't.
not?
I'm not arguing with that. I'm arguing with the practicality of the whole thing. I'm not arguing with whether or not it can be done. It can be done, yeah.
You just think it's gonna...
I
so
don't
his
see
point
the
about-
incentives.
Huh?
If people don't get rewarded for things they don't do, usually, unless they're...
Well, do we get rewarded for how many program committees we're on? How many papers we review?
To some extent, no.
Was this point also?
But reviewing a paper is a slightly different thing. That's reading a concept, basically.
Well, actually, to argue your side of the coin, it's often just looking at the abstract and then writing the...
And the intro and the graphs, yeah.
And that takes 10 seconds.
I've
Because there is no
example.
review, there is no reward. So, there is no reward. Go ahead.
So I have a practical example from a totally different field. Imagine you are running a department of a company and you are doing your financial business, buying hardware stuff and whatever. So the revision of your company, they won't check any invoice and so on. But from time to time, they are checking what you did financially in the last year. So for example, randomly they select which department has to be checked. And that, in average, increases the quality. And this is the only practical way how you can do it. And I think this is the same what you can do for papers or publication, new results. In Germany, we had some cases in the science society where, in the excellence initiative, where some universities totally faked some things. And randomly, it was found out, and yeah, it was a shame, and they were blamed. And but as this was found out randomly, in general, it increased the quality because everybody knows now if you do this, this will be a catastrophe for you. So you cannot check everything, reproduce any result, but randomly you can be asked to show me how you did it and how you documented it. And I think that's enough, and that's practical.
In fact, that was your earlier point, to do it, that everybody has to do, and then randomly it gets checked.
Yeah.
Arguing for Trevor, there are people in the company who randomly check. It's their job to randomly check, and they get paid their salary because
And actually, they get paid better if they find a mistake. So they're actually
incentivized
to catch it. Whereas
And that's your point, in our community.
I don't
we
believe people
we
do
have the
things
incentive.
unless they perceive value to themselves.
So we should be paid for peer reviewing.
What?
We should be paid for peer reviewing.
Well, yeah, you should, you know, you shouldn't do it actually.
Or you should be paid for finding the nonsense.
Exactly, but now you.
Maybe that's it. That you
There'd
can
never
add
be,
that to
there'd
your
never be a
resume.
paper
Put that down. I found that his first gallium arsenide chip was a piece of crap. That on my resume.
It was actually, but.
I know it was. It was called the Aurora chip, if I remember correctly.
So maybe we can check the best paper award, and then then it's opened, everything, they have to share all the data, and then it's open for all to
The
test it.
problem with that is somebody then taking the huge infrastructure that you built and then riding on it, which a lot of people will object to.
I think
Maybe that you just refuse the best paper award, maybe that's it.
Yeah, no, I don't want that, thanks.
Maybe one comment, I mean, so the idea of push button reproducibility is maybe a little bit naive because, for example, there's lots of fields, even in physics, where you describe the experiment the best you can. For example, if you do something on a particle accelerator, then you describe I did this, this, and this. And then other people who have particle accelerators can try to do the same thing, but you don't give away your particle accelerator to the world, so everybody else can use it, right? So there's that element to it. But I think, so I understand that you have to sort of limit the thing you sort of give away, maybe be more descriptive than just giving away your entire infrastructure. But I think in practice, a problem that I see quite often is that things do not get described to the full extent because of page limits. So people say, well, and even if it's a good paper, then you have maybe a 10-page limit, or in a journal paper you have 20 pages, and you still run to a point where you can't go any further. And I think in the day of online publishing and the internet, the idea of a page limit is a bit archaic. Maybe we should have something like a technical annex or something, where you can describe all the exit details, all the source code, or maybe pseudocode or methodology that you wouldn't necessarily want to go in the text part, but you at least have it available to be viewed as an additional thing that you basically wouldn't necessarily want to put in the paper because it would just blow up the page count. So maybe that's the way forward.
Maybe. The abstract sort of does that, right?
I now have 1327. At 1330, this thing is gonna blow up. So,
you want to vote?
I don't think we need to vote. I'm just observing that we've got 2.5 minutes left, and if anybody wants to add some final thoughts before we have to shut this thing down.
Just one question. You were talking about this label. So you as a program committee or as a conference committee, would you be interested in something like a company that has experts in the different fields who would do this certification, so this is reproducible, it makes sense, it's fully documented? Would you be interested in having this service?
Yeah, it's an expensive service, though. If you're going to pay the company.
But would you be willing to, let's say,
no, I would be with it. Well, seriously, a conference that has to pay a third party to evaluate all the software, that run into millions of dollars. Millions of dollars, right? You got 200, 300 papers you want to review, and let's say 2/3 of them have a fairly sophisticated piece of software. I mean,
so what about the sampling thing of you have some members of the program committee that don't review any papers? Their job kicks in after the set of papers have been accepted, and maybe, I don't know, there's 30 papers in the conference, 3 of them go to this
company. So
to
you
this,
keep
no, I don't want that. I don't like that. I don't like.
You don't want to.
I don't want it. I want to have it volunteer, but when you review for one of the big conferences, it's an enormous time sink. How about if your job as being on that committee doesn't do that, you get those 3 papers that are randomly chosen?
It's a way of reducing the effort and still having a sort of the same return. But you're still going to do it. Somebody's going to do it.
Why don't we do it selectively? So I doubt that. So I think there are multiple issues here. One is eliminating the backlash, right?
who actually submit bad stuff. Maybe that's happening, maybe that's not happening, I don't know. But if there is a doubt that the program committee has about a paper, they can go back to that paper and say, look, we want your source code to believe your results. Why do we do it randomly? If the idea is clear, why do you even care about the results in the end?
I now have 1:30, so go ahead. You have the last word.
Sure. So what we all want to do is we want to have as much progress as possible. What I see is these competitions work really well. You know, when I was in school, I went to one of the Dutch astronauts. He said most progress when the Russians versus the Americans, who is the first man on the moon. Very clear competition, very clear result. And then these there's image recognition challenges. There is then this challenge. These challenges with very clearly reproducible results. MPEG, video compression, is another way where people work. It's very easy to quantify how well it works. If you have these challenges, I think, maybe you need to define new challenges, but that really makes it easy to make good progress and for people to pick up the results. Maybe that's one.
I now have 1:31. We've gone over by 1 minute. Enjoy Siliamos.